The Legend of Dragoon is like, I don't know, it's like a visiting the Bahamas. Hell yeah. Someone slipped diazepam into your cocktail before kicking you into the ocean. It's like a pot of flowers. Bright blue makes it looks cool. Love it. Love this game. It's got problems. A fuck ton of them, but God help me, I love this dumb bitch. Developed by the unsinkable Sony Japan Studios. The picture of health. A branch that they would never gut and burn to the ground, because that would be an affront to their eastern roots. Completely bastardous, you motherfucker.
Please change your inefficient business.
Legend of Dragoon lives on in the zeitgeist with those who sing its praise and others downplaying it as overrated trash. Maybe I can convince you to give it a try while avoiding any major spoilers along the way, but not without telling you what kind of bullshit you're in for. Maybe you heard the game's easy, a little too easy, get bored kinda easy, and then it suddenly blindsides you with a spike in difficulty. Like turning 18 and your friends take you down to Atlantic City to find a prostitute. You ask her to roleplay as a nun, next thing you know she's inviting your hand down to the crab shack, but ah shit, she's a method actor! The order of operations are simple. Attack to gain SP to fill the spirit gauge, blow your spiritual load, and change into a Dragoon. Almost never that easy when it counts. When you attack, you're pulled into a rhythm game, the exception being Shauna and Miranda. No way they'd fuck that up, right? Well, in execution, they're fine for the most part. Additions get the job done. They're expressive and flashy, if not a little contrived. Oh, did I say a little? No, I mean, contrived. They're contrived. I'm not trying to come down on you too hard, bud. Look, Hasebe, my friend. I can respect that your man fed up with the status quo. You wanted to change it up, get us involved. But maybe you should have thought this one through a little better. I can forgive what would typically be a quick attack command is now dragged out with rhythmic additions. I even appreciate the fact that the enemy can counter you, and that within itself has counterplay to work around, unlike the restrictive world map that funnels you into rapid encounters. But here we are, limited to only one addition in battle, and the only thing differentiating them is damage scaling and SP gain. None of them can stun, poison, or mute the target inherently. Either I need to rely on a passive weapon bonus or toss some consumable magic, and I get it, the point is that our cast lacks magical aptitude. Hell, I actually like the fact that using proper magic requires a good old-fashioned henshin, but I remain unconvinced that someone can't poison the tip of their own weapon or Kongo can't give someone a concussion with those fat, firm tits of his. But I can forgive all that, nitpicks and whatnot. But nah, can't say the same thing for the input lag. The moment any arena begins to strain the game's graphical waistline, you're left scraping to readapt how you punch out additions. And oh yeah, your TV or monitor's input lag is also a factor, so enjoy that. Those magical items, for the record, factor in a character's magical damage. You know, worth keeping in consideration. However, as I said, it's all consumable and this shit doesn't stack. Nothing stacks, in fact, and with only 32 inventory slots, which get further reduced if you hold on to the handful of infinitely repeatable items. You'll be pressured to juggle your restoratives and the like. Truth be told, I enjoy inventory management, but here it feels excessive. If I were to capitalize on some form of irony. If you thought that the Japanese had it any easier with a 64-slot inventory, you fell for the psyop. I don't know how to tell you this any other way. You drank too much fluoride. Big Brother says that the Japanese exclusive magic shiny bag doubles your space. If fucking only. It's a different bag for the Pocket Station side game Moguru Dabas, which whatever you mine from there goes through his magic shiny bag and floods your own anemic satchel. For all the grief I can give Legend of Dragoon's constrictive combat, inventory included. I gotta admit that I appreciate how it commits to its own ideas and plays around with them to their furthest logical extreme. Rudimentary as it may be, properly aligning buffs and debuffs for strong burst windows, staggering the release of your Dragoon forms to cleave through back-to-back boss phases, or even burning a single spirit charge to avoid punishment for transforming served as nice little bumps in the road. Not to say too much as to avoid spoilers, but nothing beats breaking a certain cocky bastard's AI with nothing more than a single talisman. As any ambitious project is wont to do, combat is far from the only aspect that they aim to separate Legend of Dragoon from its contemporaries. Even its soundtrack is screaming to be recognized, and if I were to stamp it with a single overarching qualifier, it would be groovy. Yeah, I think that's fair. Dennis Martin flexes his creative freedom, rejecting the idea that melody should be the dominant trait. instead using groove as he feels the way it swings is less grating on the ears when looped. He would bounce off his other half, Takeo Miratsu, rest in peace, who's worked on the likes of Jumping Flash and Violence Jack to settle on the substantially catchy and varied soundtrack they put together.
If you remember Jumping Flash, I'm impressed with you.
I remember. I never played it.
As co-composers, they had gone so far as to split their recording sessions between both New York and Tokyo-based studios. You can say whatever you want about the soundtrack. I mean, hell, even I would take or leave a few themes, but you can't say that the lengths that they went to see their vision through is anything short of onerous. All the same, the atmosphere is sublime, at times visually arresting, and at the risk of sounding hopelessly shallow. Legend of Dragoon's aesthetic is what most likely kept it alive in my mind all these years. I likened it earlier to a game that feels like the tropics. Well, the Bahamas. Summer is what I was trying to get at. In every sense of the word, some of the game's most memorable towns and dungeons will evoke that sensation for me. The colors, texture, architecture, even the frozen north will stop you for a breath to navigate a moat-laden merchant port with a warming emphasis placed on the water's reflective surface. The world itself, in general, pops with an organic flair, summer imagery or not. That much is made clear with how stone surfaces are often non-Euclidean. At times, it even resembles flesh, radiating with the same discomfort found in Panzer Dragoon or something out of H.R. Geiger's portfolio. Some of the abominations found there within are just as fitting, as are Hirohiko Iyoko's dragon designs. Hasabe's heart was set on the visuals of this world. Characters, though, were a bit of a different story. Before they landed at these more toned-down, realistic designs, they were groping at something more anime. Was it worth it? Fuck yeah, it was. Between Kenichi Iwata's art direction and Tetsuya Nakamoto's character designs, they knocked that shit out of the park. Can't stress enough how much I love the finalized character concepts. Shame it had to come at the expense of Rose's green hair. It's unfortunate, as I do fancy me a verdant-haired vixen or two, but I must confess, they don't look that great in the cinematics. Don't get me wrong, they're gorgeous in their own right, brilliant even. It was the talented polyphony that put them together after all. But otherwise, everyone kinda looks like bug-eyed blow-up dolls. Besides, as far as the few times Polyphony was let out of the GT slave mines go, consider me more impressed with a Mega Boost. Hey, far be it from me to downplay Polyphony's contribution, as I do exactly that, but the in-game cutscenes are the real showstopper. While not perfect for obvious reasons, I feel they're a better representation of the concept art, which, gets me feeling a certain kind of way. Hell, it's still a surprise to be reminded of how expressive that they can be, the creative camera work, the detail. Damn, some nice fingers. And if I'm being honest, these cutscenes do a better job of landing the story's more emotionally climacteric hikes than the dialogue itself. At least for a few scenes, they're better seen than heard. Nothing's out of place, but at times the payoff is lacking. It's a perfectly serviceable tale of the idealistic, lost, zealous, and vengeful pulled in by the veil of war, only to find themselves in over their head, or as you've come to know over the years. Par for course. The themes are where its potential lies though, informing as to what could have been some pretty heavy character moments. You got your child abandonment, parental abuse, sacrifice, grief, fratricide, infanticide, parasiticism, insanity, the likes of which rendered toothless thanks to how little screen time some of these affairs are given, let alone the overarching consequence they have on the cast bar seen here or there. Again, without saying too much, at one point in the game the plot thread involving the Black Monster, which affects no less than 4 people in your party on a very deep and personal level, while keeping in mind that this is the plot thread involving infanticide, is brought to an anticlimactic shrug and a very tender, get over it. Yeah, there goes the win, taken right from its sails. As if the writers fumble the emotional fulfillment despite the praise I've been giving them for every other narrative and world-building beat that they nail. While I wouldn't go so far as to say that they cross every T and dot every I, each breathtaking vista, plot device, or visually striking oddity is substantiated with purpose, like the moon that never sets and so on. Simple things like ghosts tie in perfectly with the theme of history repeating itself, and I don't mean just the last big war. I mean, they're legends of the origin of life itself and how every tribe of creature had to fight tooth and nail for prosperity and the right to live. And all of this takes place on just a single continent. And that, god damn it, people acknowledge this. They know it's just one spit of land, but they talk about it like it's their world. The known world's big, the unknown more so. Love that shit. That's where the writing really shines. That broad sense of adventure. A familiar motive that strings you along a varied range of towns and mountains and everything in between, forging camaraderie and every so often reflecting on the scale of time to let it sink in just the pain in the ass Dart and company are going through. Then the game treats you to Meru busting someone's balls or a drink with Hashel to decompress and pick someone's mind. They constantly hammer at that tenor of companionship, something that even the gorgeous, albeit unfinished, Atarukagiwa manga sticks close to. Creative liberties included. Going by the setting and dynamic alone, Legend of Dragoon borders on the likes of Lodos and Slayers. Not identical, of course, but in that sense of a classical high fantasy journey with endearing cast chemistry and nothing new to say. But saying it well enough. Bar the typos.
Meanwhile,
Miranda's confronted by what would have been an otherwise powerful struggle with forgiveness being undermined by a setup of nothing more than a few fleeting moments of pause, leaving this aspect of her character underdeveloped and the scene's impact dampened. Also, it doesn't help that the framing at this moment is questionable at best. After all, how the hell can you trust that thing? If the sudden reminder of my disappointment seemed at all jarring to you, then maybe I'm doing my job right and you can see where I'm coming from a little better. Like an anemic erectile dysfunction, I'm left feeling deflated. It's hard to tell if they are pulling punches or if it all just boils down to localization. It's obviously something I'd like to see improved upon, and against my better judgment, part of me still wishes for a remake. There's plenty of pain points it could iron out. Such an endeavor could go any which way, and to be honest with myself, I do feel that we're too reliant on remakes as it is. Consider me grateful for the ones that did themselves justice. What am I fretting over? Their devotion to Japan studios is ironclad, bound by blood, even. And maybe I'd be better off asking for a prequel. You know, an indirect sequel wouldn't be so bad either. After all, they got a lot to work with, including an entire unexplored world at that. What lies beyond Endiness? Hey, yeah, you know what? This is kind of coming together. I think we're onto something. I wonder what Hasabe's been up to. Speaking as a fan, even I'm scratching my head as to how the hell Legend of Dragoon came about such adoration and ambrosia. Well, no matter how much you break something down and pick it apart, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Sometimes. And I think this is one of those times, where maybe the game's really pretty and we're all just really shallow. Anyway, if you want to give the game a shot, it's not too hard to come by. You can pick it up from the PS3 digital storefront, the ticking time bomb. That is, fair warning, like with many standard dev games played in HD, the edges where they rely on overscan to clean it up stick out like a sore thumb. You can also find Xenogears on here. Hey, I analyzed that bitch. It's like getting to watch my brain melt in real time. Out of the 6 times I mention Emeralda, I twice call her Esmeralda. Good job, Pokey. Hey, you know, speaking of robots, it came to me in a dream. The burning question. What would it look like if Polyphony were freed from the GT sweatshop and allowed to see sunlight for once in their goddamn lives? Free to do as they please. Omega Boost would be the answer. An answer no one needed for a question no one asked. After all, people love their car porn. But maybe you don't like feeling up an axle to adjust the handling or get tantric pleasure out of grinding for a license. Well, hold fast. We may still get your rocks off. That's right. Omega Boost is not only devoid of cars, but depth as well. We're talking both in terms of gameplay and fuck all to tweak under the hood. One of a kind for Polyphony when you consider even something as short as Taurus Trophy has its signature depth that the devs are known for. God, I wrote that like shit. If the first thing to cross your mind is Macross and VFX 2 as you watch this, well, you got an eye for the obscure, but you missed the mark. If you're thinking Zone of the Enders, well, you got an eye for the inspired, but still, no dice. If you're drawing parallels to Panzer Dragoon, congratulations, you hit the nail on the head. That's right, compadre. This bad boy is pure auto-scrolling bliss. An honest-to-God gun, blazing missiles, spraying, boost dancing, scan, spamming, rail shooter. Top of the line 5th gen polygonal count, draw distance tighter than a Vestal Virgin. That's an ancient Rome joke. Consider this video officially cultured.
It's fucking shit.
Sega deemed the sun to set on Team Andromeda, at which some nebulous point in time, either before or after, Yuji Yasuhara found his way to Polyphony Digital, where he took on his role as the lead designer and programmer of Omega Boost. With Panzer Dragoon's Vi under his belt, the game takes on a similar shape, though without being enslaved to it. And if there's anything I have to admire, it's the fact that you have a hell of a lot more freedom of movement through most of the game. The exception being the tunnel missions, which play closer to the chest of its Panzer Dragoon roots and design. Just as the insert sleeve has prophesized, you'll be bagging bogeys and, Not much else really. Oh shit, what am I talking about? Yeah, you can slowly thread needles and drive yourself up the fucking wall. Just about the only thought you have to put into taking anything down is piecing together whether your Vulcan or missiles will kill it faster. Bosses tend to boil down to either move the right way or stick to the sweet spot. Unless we're talking hard mode, then they're caffeinated. There's very little headroom for personal growth with a skill ceiling that low. Sure, it feels nice to keep a solid scan running in the face of danger before you just punch that shit, or memorizing skirmish patterns, but this is also the same game with an impressively flexible rebind chart, even going so far as to letting you double up on keybinds, but refuses to let you use accelerate and stop on the same control scheme. Got more than enough room for both, yet these actions are mutually exclusive. Shit, the quick turn is solely bound to tilting the left analog stick before clicking it in. Can't rebind it, and you lose quick turn entirely without an analog controller. Same can be said about those nifty modifiers like turbo mode, directional boost, or 5-way fire. It's one or the other, and frustratingly those modifiers are exclusive to zone play and the bonus U stages. Can't use any of it in the main campaign. Still though, credit where it's due, none of this makes the game any less fun. It's a blast through and through, even if you have to bite the bullet and accept these limiting caveats. You can also consider me a big fan of the Viper boost. Not just because it feels good to slap someone's shit in it with it, but anything that pays homage to Ryosuke Takahashi's blue Comet SPT Layzner just speaks to my soul, man. Between Viper Boost taking on the appearance of Layzner's VMAX and the disembodied female AI partner watching her back in a similar fashion to Rey.
Warning, undefined enemies approaching.
Seeing the Beta Boost retaliate with the equivalent of Red VMAX left no room for doubt. I'm sure all that rings familiar.
The target has disappeared. I can detect no sign of vital activity.
You mean that everyone is dead?
That is correct. Good work, sir.
マニュアル照準によりターゲット撃破。
僕が撃ったのか。
ターゲット撃破。生命反応停止。
I'll admit, it left me grinning, but it should be no surprise given how influential Ryosuke Takahashi's work is, especially Layzner and Armor Trooper VOTOMS. Yeah, I know, it's my favorite Shaco clip. Again, even had an earlier suspicion that Omega Boost Verniers were a throwback to VOTOMS, and after getting my hands on a European demo disc via the Internet Archive, because God forbid anything were easy, I was able to thumb through the concept art and felt further vindicated. Even more neat is that on these VOTOMS style Verniers, they use Layzner style nozzles. Digging more through the archive, I got my hands on 2 Pute demo discs of the Omega Boost beta, and sure as shit, its old subtitle was The Armored Trooper in Universe. Again, all smiles. These demo builds are from as far back as 95. Shit's changed. A lot. There was a cockpit view, buttons to rotate your Z-axis, missiles were a collectible power-up, and mission structure was checklist-oriented. Oh, and would you look at that? They trust me with both the gas and brakes. Now if only it didn't feel like shit. Shoji Kawamori on board is the primary mechanical designer, advisor, and supervisor, as if you couldn't already tell from the aforementioned concept art. The man brings his... I can't remember how to pronounce that. Yeah, how to pronounce.
Itel design Jijaro.
Jijaro.
Fucking shit.
Jijaro.
Itel design Jijaro.
The man brings his Jujaro-influenced practicality and style, drawing from cars which inspired him the most and reshaping them into the grounded mechanical designs that he's known for. While the game is generous with clear shots of Omega Boost, Beta only gets a handful, Herb Archer gets an unreleased toy box, and everyone else gets jack shit. Long story short, I'd kill for an art book of the game. Kawamori also directed the opening and closing cinematics and oh yeah, there's a story or something. Let me check my notes here for I don't know. Most of this is relegated to the manual like an IBM PC RPG from 1981. I had to do a little more digging online to come across the fact that Omega Boost's model is referred to as a pixie, hence the scoring etymology. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, any story that ends a few miles outside of Philly doesn't matter. I would know. I'm from that nebulous region of dying malls and Wawa shoplifters. If you look carefully, you'll spot the dev's metaphorical wink with a lingering shot of a 1946 convertible Lincoln Continental. Okay, Polyphony, you get one. I say under my breath in a begrudging tone while I make no attempt to hide my invasive erection. You know what? I respect that. Bar the back of the box, they restrain themselves. There's not so much as even a sly wink or a nod to Gran Turismo. It's an act of faith and confidence to let Omega Boost be its own thing. From start to finish, it feels like a one-off and knowingly wears that fact on its sleeve. With pride. At some point between 95 up to its launch, it figured out what it wanted to be. They let the game flex that polyphony, glitz, and glamour through its visuals and sound design, cutting the fat and fast-tracking the fun, all before respectfully tucking it away to rest in peace, dignity intact within the regal Sony Psych! on. We all know it got the oubliette. There's a part of me that often ruminates over the alternate timeline where Mega Boost was given a seat beside Gran Turismo as a continual series of highly intricate, nigh endlessly depthful simulationist mecha games that could give Armored Core and Classic Front Mission a run for its money. Then I'm reminded how balancing a love letter to mecha and Jim Ryan's insatiable bloodlust for westernizing Sony's image would just be an exercise in self-destruction. Back to the oubliette with you. If you have any interest in getting your hands on Omega Boost, just keep your expectations in check. No, it's not the best rail shooter, nor a dead-on facsimile for mecha animation, but any game so cocksure that it slaps static X on the main menu shamelessly. Well, it's alright in my book. Which, by the way, the PAL version lacks said balls-out shamelessness. Also, being that it runs at 50 Hz, the Vulcan has a trash fire rate. Either way, you should watch Layzner. Or any Ryosuke Takahashi work, really. The man doesn't get enough love in the West. Pretty fucked up. Anyway, you can catch me on social media. And hey Jim, play us out on some good news!
Toshi